Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Where would we be with playtesters? Bit late to this. Big inhale of breath there. We've got a couple of things to say about this, It is what it is. It's just one of them videos. Again, we're just sort of a DBD kind of rant/news channel these days rather than actually playing the game. The tunneling, slugging, camping bollocks that was going to be added to the game has been reversed until a later date. They plan to re-implement this kind of shit after they've took it back to the drawing board. So that's a bit unfortunate. But, at least we've basically bought the game another few months of playability, I suppose, before we just decide to self-destruct our fucking IP for the sake of very shit survivor mains that shouldn't be anywhere near a PvP game, quite frankly. Where's Colt when you need him to recommend The Sims or Civilization to these people? But it is what it is, fellas. So here's the post, obviously, dev update. We have heard you clearly that the current implementation of the tunneling reduction and slugging reduction systems, the authoritarian dictator fucking ship that was going to get added to the game because we have to be kind to the survivors as the killer players these days because it might upset them if you play the game. Players have been testing this week feels too punishing for killers. You'd know that if you play tested it. Even just one game, you'd know that. For the release of Sinister Grace, the Krasu chapter, we'll load back those features and their associated perk changes. How about just fucking U-turn them entirely? Just fucking get rid of them because you don't need them. There comes a point when you're a PvP dev, especially, where you just have to put your foot down and just say no. You either learn how to fucking play the game or go and fucking play something else. That's literally what it is. It's not even gatekeeping, because this shit was going to fucking ruin the game. It was literally going to ruin the fucking game, mate. For survivors as well at the same time, because you would only ever see blight nurses or ghouls from that point then these changes were implemented in. Nothing else. Ever. Because it would be literally unplayable for any other killer that has no map mobility or any kind of active chase power. That can be has some degree of reliability to it, I should say, of landing it. Because by the time you actually get somebody, you're probably going to be at about 3 gens, and then by virtue of this player going down because you've punished them for what might have been bad pathing, or you've outplayed them at pallets, anything that falls under this blanket, you would then have to go for somebody else, because if you went for that person again whilst you're at 1 gen with 4 survivors alive, it would be mean. And we can't have that in our PvP game, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, for the release of Sinister Grace, we will hold back those features. There's where it comes from. So they are actually going to implement this later on. So, we'll have to see how fucking long it is. But, basically just take the game as a trial period now, I suppose. To iterate on some adjustments based on your feedback, we will test these features again in the upcoming PTB. So it's going to be in the next PTB, actually, thinking about that. There you go. So, yeah, we saved ourselves one release window, I suppose. And we'll release them live when we believe they are ready. The only way they're going to be ready is if you just get rid of them. I think there was one change, actually. I can't remember what change it was that was actually okay with this. But I don't think I can mention it, actually, because it does relate to the killer side of things, because there was actually something that was actually wise. But if I say that the only killer positive change was actually the positive of this release, I'd be shot down by the Twitter firing squad, as always, fellas. So, incentivizing killers to go for fresh hooks and separate survivors by giving them bonuses to their gen kicks. By saying that was actually a good idea. Nah, I'm a biased killer main, ladies and gentlemen, if I say that, don't worry. But that's actually one of the healthiest steps that would actually improve the game, because it'd actually give lower tier killers a very slight step as well up to actually being somewhat playable and viable in the current game state. But again, we can't have that, because we're more concerned about literally just isolating the entire killer roster down to blight, nurse and ghoul, whilst also crying 24/7 about blight, nurse and ghoul being the only 3 killers that we see, whilst actually pining and begging behaviours to add shit like this to the game that is literally going to result in your games only being blight, nurse and ghoul. We've said this a million times, fellas, but, it's literally like trying to punch fucking blood out of a stone with this community. But we'll test these features again in an upcoming PTB, and we'll release them live when we believe they're ready. Thank you for your participation in our crucial testing process, and stay tuned for future updates as they progress. There it is, fellas. So again, it's coming back. Unfortunately, that's the thing, innit? Because need I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what side of the fence you're on, this is a PvP game, player versus player, right? So when you start telling one side how to play the game to be kind to the other side that are a bunch of fucking fairies, it becomes an issue, which it was very, very close to actually being one in live servers, because they very nearly implemented this shit. And they're still gonna. It's coming in a fucking PTB, So we're still gonna have to deal with this shit at some point, when it's needless. It doesn't need to exist. It literally doesn't need to exist. I know there are solo queue issues with the game, but I've never personally, from personal personal perspective, I don't go into every single one of my Survivor games expecting to escape and then launching a fucking tirade when I don't. I don't give a shit if the killer tunnels me out of my games. I leave the game, I queue into the next one. Losing as a survivor, my dear little survivor mains, and I just want to say this as well, doesn't even hurt a fraction of the amount of what losing as a killer does. And the reason for that is because you have the virtue of leaving then and there. You don't have to sit through what is a fucking negative game when you get stomped as survivors all the way to the end, and then taking the snot-nosed, phlegm-gargling shit that appears in the endgame lobby in nearly all the games that this game's community blasts upon you at the end. Because the community itself likes to paint itself as this really wholesome, connective, progressive, whatever you want to label it as, community, but they're actually all a bunch of toxic cunts that do nothing but flame each other for play styles that they don't like. That's literally what this game is these days. Because again, Twitter has taken over. It's another one of the symptoms and the byproducts of why designing a game specifically for that crowd is a bad idea. So that's what we nearly had with this. But again, it's going back to a PTB because they have to fucking listen to them, because they'll fucking start whinging again about how we don't have all these, we're killer biased, all this kind of shit. We're killer biased for not making the PvP game one-sided towards our interests, which is actually the definition of survivor biased, which is what all the killer players normally say as well, which is actually a fact in that situation when you're adding mechanics to a game that locks one side out of playing it because it hurts the feelings of the other. You're asking the devs to be survivor-sided, but that's fine. If nothing changes, it's killer-sided. Idiotic brain rot, mate. But it is what it is. Anyway, as I say, we've been enjoying IDV, mate. This is literally me just looking through the front window of a burning house at this point, from my perspective. Anyway, as I say, I don't know if I'm ever going to return to this in terms of games, playing games of it. But YouTube promotes these sorts of rant videos and opinion videos that I have on this sort of stuff, so I'm just basically keeping on doing them on autopilot. But yeah, some people like to hear me thoughts on this. I get people commenting on my IDV videos to, what are your thoughts on this change in DBD? So I'm still doing them because people are asking me to do them. I did say in the Krasu video that I did actually like the Krasu as a character. I did actually think she was she had the basis of being a fun killer. But obviously that was at the time when this shit was still being implemented into the game, and it still is going to be implemented, but at the same time, it's now it's bearable again for another couple of months until this comes along in a PTB again, and then we just get fucking destroyed again. But there it is. So, maybe, Behaviour won't listen to this anyway, as I say, but it's what needs to happen. We basically just need to stop fucking listening to Twitter. I've said this from time to time, mate. They've got the worst fucking takes imaginable, this game. And this is evidence of it. This is physical evidence of it. Because this is all the shit that they talk about on Twitter. It's all the stuff they talk about on the Steam forums. Actually, should we go over to the Steam forums? Just a little bit of a mid-cut here, because I do want to try and show you something, actually. Let's have a look at what the Steam forums are saying, right? As I say, straight in here, I did a little bit of a clip because I needed to re-edit the Steam Streamlabs kind of thing just to get it to capture this. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is what you're dealing with in this player base. Now, brace yourself, ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to this, because you're about to witness some fucking brain damage. and you know there's no real way of avoiding it. So we'll see what's actually going on here. Yep, here we go. First two. Right, let's have a look at this. Right, so the first one, 16. Right, look at the rewards on this. These are all positive rewards as well. There is 9 jesters, so you know there are some people with common sense, but there's quite a lot of them that are upvote reward in this. So behaviour caved into killer mains. Are you kidding me? You can tell by the title already. This is what I talk about when I say this is what Twitter sounds like. This, right? It's the happy-go-lucky, oh, look at me, I'm sweet, but behind your back, you're a fucking cunt kind of thing, you know? That's what they're like, they're fake as fuck. So, they've caved into killer mains. And the reason they've caved into killer mains, ladies and gentlemen, is they basically U-turned on something that would destroy the fucking fundamental game balance. And this person doesn't like that because it doesn't give them their free, easy wins. So let's read, ladies and gentlemen, what the people that are currently killing this game have to say. I guess it may be time to find a new game to play. Please do. Please do. PvP gaming isn't for you. And this is what I've been saying. They've actually understood here. Oh, please do. I'm so tired of Behaviour not keeping their word. They didn't have a word to begin with. It was a case of Behaviour. Again, there's 2 parties at fault here. I'm going to break down every sentence here, fellas, because it needs to be said. There's 2 parties at fault here. There's Behaviour, and obviously there's this person. Being tired of Behaviour, a game dev that doesn't even quality assure the fucking product they're selling to you, not keeping their word, is idiotic because they don't know what they're doing. They're just literally what I said in the Krasu video. They're throwing shit at the wall and they're seeing if it sticks or it slides. You know, and it's fucking slid in a sloppy, shitty fucking mass this time because all the community rightfully turned around and said, no, don't put this shit in the game. Be thankful that it's actually coming back to another PTB, so you'll still get your time in the fucking spotlight, don't worry. Always at the expense of survivors, solo queue, just factually incorrect. And always walking back changes to appease crying killer mains. Crying killer mains in this, ladies and gentlemen, if you're from IDV as well, I want to address what the crying killer mains label refers to. The crying killer main is basically somebody who is basically criticising the game because over the past, give or take, 5 to 6 years now, all we've had to put up with on the killer side of things is non-stop fucking coddling of survivors. And when the killer side of the player base in this particular instance speaks up about it, it causes World War III because again, these people that we're reading here shouldn't be anywhere near PvP games. Because they just demand wins constantly, no matter how fucking brainless they actually are. They need the game lower into their very low IQ, even if it ruins it for everybody else. But these people make up a large majority of this game's community. That's literally the situation that this game's in. It's literally collective brain damage. I play both roles and play fairly on both sides. That's just factually incorrect. I can tell that by the way you're saying you're going to start a post saying behaviour caved into killer mains, appease crying killer mains, and then in the next sentence go on to say I play both roles. So what are you when you're playing killer then? Fucking idiots, mate, swear. And play fairly on both sides. You mustn't 4K or kill anybody then if you're playing fairly as killer, because that's how you lose. Thus was really looking forward to the changes since I don't tunnel camp or slug, and we're so happy Behaviour was finally doing something to stop the toxicity. This sentence right here, fellas, in fact, actually, somebody actually said this on the Reddit the other day. So this right here, let me just highlight all of it just to get it all in there. Up until about, yeah, to there, I play both sides and play fairly on both sides. Play both roles and play fairly on both sides, right? Thus, was really looking forward to the changes since I don't tunnel, camp or slug. This sentence is basically a fucking meme in the community itself. Because they all say this. Every single one of them says this sentence. These people, when they whine about killer mains, and it's always about killers this as well when they say this, they always play both sides, and they play fairly on both sides, you know. Now, to give them the benefit of the doubt, in this particular regard, this person could play both roles, and they could play both sides. But they are on killer, they will at, if they're playing fairly, they will be at baseline MMR. Literally basement level, you know, dungeon level. Fucking Earth's core level, you know, MMR. because you can't play if you're playing anyone other than any kind of high mobility killer or anything that has anything that can be landed easily for injures. You cannot play fairly in this game as killer if you want to win it. You can't. You physically don't have enough time anymore. You know, with all the second chance shit that's added into the game as well. So, you know, I'm finding a bit of difficulty to see the credibility in this, but it is literally a meme captured in the wild there, fellas. So this person plays both roles and plays fairly on both sides. They don't tunnel, camp, or slug. Appease crying killer mains. Yeah, we play both sides. Was finally doing something to stop the toxicity, abuse, and exploitation of the game. Right, this is a bit of a topic. I've mentioned this in the past. This is literally, it's like basically this is a manual. It's a Twitter manual. This person is literally laying it all on the table of how these people actually think, and this is the mentality that is destroying this game. We're just addressing it at its core in this video, fellas. So to stop the toxicity, so we'll address the first one, right? The toxicity. All of these types of players, these ones right here, who are now taken to the forums because BHVR have U-turned on this absolutely cataclysmically shit change in this game that was going to literally destroy the game's balance and only isolate the killer roster down to 3 viable killers. They only see toxicity in their particular viewpoint is whenever they are hooked or downed. That's what it is. Right, so whenever the killer actually does their job, that's toxic. So let me give you an example. I'll give you an actual example of this because it sounds a bit stupid. That say you spawn in at the beginning of a game, right? All of you are spawned in. You're all not in line of sight of the killer, right? Yeah, okay. This particular person that's complaining right here, and again, not this physical person, but again, it's these types of people. They'll move around the map. They'll find their first generator, right? Nobody else has been chased up until this point, right? They'll get on a generator, the heartbeat will start because the killer will be coming over. They'll start running, they'll make a misplay at the first pallet or window, get hit, the killer's toxic. Then they'll get the speed burst from the hit, they'll move to the next pallet or window, potentially make another mistake there, and then they'll go down, and then the killer is the most toxic piece of shit known to man. That's what toxicity is. And this is what this is referring to here. Abuse and exploitation of the game is basically a blanket term by these people for tactics. That's it. Tunneling survivors out in this game is basically mandatory with the way all the second chance shit that already exists in the game already dictates it to be this way. You don't physically have time, as most killers, to go through mandatory off the records, DSs, dead hards, finesses, iframes on vaults, potentially getting kicked in the fucking face whenever a survivor vaults in front of you. Because, you know, these things sound like small complaints, especially stuff like Last Stand, because obviously it disables after the first time it's used, so you can only do it once per game, but it doesn't really matter because it's still that time wasted, and that little small piece of time can actually lose you the game as killer. It has a knock-on effect. These people can't see this. This is what I always go on about when I say they shouldn't be adding fight back mechanics in this game, because the game literally cannot fucking handle it. It isn't Identity 5, you know, where killers actually have strong powers rather than just try to get behind person and press M1 on them. You know, there's killers in IDV that can record survivors vaulting, dropping pallets, and then re-record it, switch it into reverse, and have them fucking drop pallets in front of the survivors. They're little mimics that they get them, or have them drop pallets in front of them, use the recording to lift the pallet back up, like Vecna's Mage Hand. You can record yourself vaulting to block vaults off, all this kind of different layers to the killers that actually exist in IDV, and they actually have impacts on the survivors rather than it being a case of the survivors only having an impact on the killer's gameplay, you know, wherein if a survivor is tunneled out of a game in Dead by Daylight's case, that's when the killer does have an impact on the game, because then it will make it significantly harder for the final 3 survivors to actually do their objective. That is why tunneling happens. That is why proxy camping happens, because killers these days, if they are not Black Nurse, Ghoul, Dark Lord, I can't think of anybody else at the moment. Obviously, I've not played the game for ages, but any of those sorts of killers that aren't considered high tier, they need to get somebody out as fast as possible, or they cannot fucking compete. And if in your MMR, you're sitting here and saying, I play both roles, I play fairly on both, I don't tunnel, I don't camp, I don't slug, you're at low MMR, son. I'm telling you now, mate, because you are not fucking anywhere near an MMR where you can fucking say this shit with any credibility, mate. Because you ain't. It's, you know, there's loads of these types of players, mate, that they'll say this and then they'll have like 900,000 hours on Survivor, and then they'll play one game as killer, 4K it as a trapper because it's against basically bots, and then they'll go, oh, it's easy, killer's easy, fellas, it's easy, killer, you know, all this kind of wank, and that's literally what's pushed within the community, and all the big streamers do it as well, because a lot of the big streamers for this game, they just fucking D-rank and then bully fresh installs, you know. So it is what it is at the end of the day. But yeah, that's also a byproduct of why people like this exist in the first place, because they watch the big fucking streamers go against day one players, and you know the touted as fucking pro. You know, it's fucking disgusting. You literally just anybody that comes into this game new is susceptible to being fucking bullied by a 4-man streaming squad at any point. You know. I thought they were going to attempt to put an end to the game being played in a way in which it was never intended nor designed to be played. Truly how sad and tragic this is. Fuck me. This person hasn't got a fucking clue what they're talking about. Christ. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I've just said, I've literally just said it to you. I'm not going to repeat myself, obviously, but yeah. The game is designed to be actually played in this way, the tunneling. The irony of this is it's actually the reverse of this statement that's actually being done to the game now. BHVR are basically trying to patch out the way to play the game for killers by shoehorning it into this friendly sunshine and rainbows hand-holding simulator where killers don't kill, they lightly tickle, you know? Because the way that the game is actually designed to be played, which is by tunneling and camping, similar to IDV actually, where you are actually supposed to get the first one out and then try and, you know, go from there. It is the way it's designed to be played, so that's just factually incorrect. I'm so over this wishy-washiness on this part. Yep, Twitter-based language. Language of a fucking 12-year-old. With all due respect, it's completely unfair to just scrap it all, in my opinion. Given this, why doesn't BHVR just walk back the survivor prevention changes that survivors didn't want as well? It's only fair. Survivor prevention changes? Fucking what? What changes? I actually don't know what changes this person's on about. For the past solid about 2 years, we'll say 2 years, BHVR have done nothing but babysit survivors, literally. Like, where's off the record come from? Where's, you know, all these new base kit mechanics that are getting added to the game? Iframes for being rescued, extensions to them iframes for being rescued, you know, insta heals being worked into the game recently, you know, off the hooks. I don't know what the fuck this is, to be honest. I'm so done with it all. Just fucking play The Sims then. Just go ahead and replace Survivor players with bots at this point and be done with it. Nah, you know, there's a degree of learning how to play the game. Survivor players are dropping like flies, factually incorrect. And I've been for quite some time now, factually incorrect. They're just over it. Nah, they're not. That's just you. It's just not fun anymore. Well, you know, play something else. Play Civilization. Being able to tunnel out of the 1v3 and slugged all the time. Respectfully, this is not a strategy. It's abusing an exploit. No, it's a strategy for a competitive edge and a toxic one at that. Dear fucking Lord, ladies and gentlemen, imagine if this person found IDV. Jesus Christ, dude. This is exactly what I talk about, by the way, to any of you that do play IDV. This is exactly what I was talking about in the stream the other day, where the very core gameplay of IDV, these fuckers wouldn't be able to handle a single game of it. They just wouldn't. Because they wouldn't be able to understand that when a killer is repeatedly downing them and putting them on chair, it's a tactic, it's not a personal vendetta or a hateful attack on them as a person. It's just a case of getting somebody out of the game for the strategic advantage. But again, this is what I talk about. This is literally it, right in front of your eyes. This is how these people think. They shouldn't be anywhere near fucking PvP games. Honestly, it's just so sad. The game used to be so much fun, magical even, once upon a time. Yeah, before you all fucking ruined it. And that's the situation we're now in. Comments. YouTube video, you'll be back. Yeah, I'm just going to say it's a fucking song, isn't it? Oh, here we go. Let's have a look. Right, this one's got a lot of rewards. We'll see what side it's on, but this person's speaking sense. I can tell by the first sentence. Frankly speaking, the new changes were hand-holding to the extreme, and they have simply said they are pushing it back to readjust, so I'd not fallen into despair just yet. Killers that never camp, slug, or tunnel are simply not good killers, or at least killers that throw a ton of matches. That's the harsh truth. There it is. So this person's explained it. Yeah. In that last bit there, killers that never camp, slug, or tunnel, it is throwing. It is literally throwing if you don't do that in the game. I used to try and not do it because I don't do it based on what these fucking fairies want. But I don't do this, or I try not to do it because I find it boring in DBD. I like to go for chases, I like to use my power, I like to get rewards of downing people with my power and all that kind of stuff, not just fucking sitting in the distance around a hook or immediately chasing somebody off the hook again, you know? I want to chase new people, I want to apply pressure, I want to be a presence in the map. But no, this particular hand-holding shit wasn't the way to go to do it. But yeah, that's correct, what this person's saying. It's literally correct, that's how it is. There we go. No, that's not true. Good killers are the ones that can win without having to resort to camping, tunneling, slugging. Yeah, there you go. So this confirms what they said, what I said about this. I played both roles and played barely on both sides. They've played one game, ladies and gentlemen. One game. And then they've gone, oh, it's easy. It's easy, you know. They can win without camping, slugging, and tunneling. Sorry, but that's the harsh truth. Just recycling his words. Yeah, Twitter-based argument. But this is what I talk about. This is exactly, I'm just giving you an example. We'll just read this one and then we'll cap it off because I'm not going through all this shit. It's fucking brain rot. The proposed changes punish killers for not playing by the Survivor rulebook. There it is. Yep. If you as a Survivor main saw nothing wrong with the changes, try this thought experiment. Imagine a patch in which whenever a generator is completed, oh, here we go. Come on, lad. Speak it. Speak it. Whenever a generator is completed without the killer getting a hook during the generator's repair time, all of the generators are blocked and regress at twice the rate until the killer gets an hook. Fucking phenomenal example. You love to see this. Fucking phenomenal. Preach it, lad. Sound ridiculous? Sounds like hand-holding and coddling? Sound absurdly biased towards the killer? Good, because that's how biased the proposed changes were towards survivors. There's somebody with an intellect. That's exactly what it is, right there. That's the exact fucking textbook response, fellas, right there, from him, this person. That's what it is. What they've done there is they've literally give you the what would be the killer equivalent to what was about to be added. So whenever a generator is completed, if there was on this flip side, this flip universe, if there were survivors that were actually good at kiting, and they actually managed to loop the killer for the time that it took to do a generator, and that killer you don't even have to do it for a long amount of time, because the generators at the beginning of the match will go very quick anyway, which eats into this, obviously. It makes it even more relevant. So whenever a generator is completed without the killer getting a hook during the generator's repair time, all of the generators are blocked. It stops the survivors from doing their objective. What was actually going to be implemented to the game, ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't here for this, and it is the equivalent, because they were basically going to add to the game, if a survivor was hooked twice in a row and died as a result of that, all the generators in the map couldn't be kicked anymore. So you could not defend generators in any way whatsoever. Your perks got deleted, your ability to kick generators got deleted, your entire pressure and potential comeback got wiped because you weren't kind to your enemies in a PvP game. Yeah? So that's basically the killer equivalent. Whenever they don't get a hook but a generator is done, all of the generators are blocked until that killer gets a hook. That's literally the killer equivalent. So they've actually put some thought into that comment. And it's right, and they should be rightfully rewarded, to be honest. Some of these were jesters, probably. Yeah, there's one jester there. One of them's brain damaged. The rest of them aren't, though. There it is. Good shit. We'll end it there on that comment. I'm not reading any more of it, because it's just, I'm literally losing IPQ points with people trying to defend what was going to break this fucking game. But, you know, it is what it is. Just wanted to do a brief touch up on that one, fellas, because, you know, it is what it is. It's a bit of a small update, but, you know. You've got your game back for about, what is it, like 2-3 months, I think, until the next PTB. Well, there you go. See you on the next one.